You've probably heard people talk about living authentically, right? But what if our whole idea of authenticity is actually kind of flawed? And what if that flaw is what's blocking your path to a life that feels truly meaningful? Today, we're going to cut through some of that noise. We're pulling from, well, some cutting-edge psychology and frankly surprising research to explore the truth about personal values. And this isn't just about, having good intentions. It's really about building a life that feels authentic, aligned, and, deeply meaningful. So our mission today, uncover how understanding and reflecting on your true values can be a shortcut to a life that's rich in purpose and well-being. We want to go beyond the surface stuff and reveal insights that might genuinely shift your perspective.
It really is fascinating, isn't it? How often we just operate without a clear compass. We make choices that feel, well, a bit off. Our values, they are that compass. They guide every decision, the big ones, the small ones, even when we're not consciously thinking about them. It's such a foundational piece of psychological well-being, often overlooked until things start feeling, misaligned.
Okay, so we all have a general sense of values. Things like integrity or kindness. But where does the real deep dive start? Like, what exactly are personal values beyond just a list of nice qualities?
Yeah, they're more than just qualities. They're the core beliefs, the principles that dictate what you personally consider good or bad or right versus wrong. Think about it. Well, why do you value hard work over cutting corners? Or honesty over, say, deceit? These aren't just abstract concepts. They are the filters you use to experience the world, to make choices. And everyone prioritizes them uniquely. It creates this completely individual internal blueprint for how you navigate life. And it's important to distinguish them from core beliefs, too. Core beliefs can sometimes be limiting, maybe developed unconsciously in childhood. Values are more consciously chosen, refined.
Right, an internal blueprint.
Yeah.
A compass. But I think a lot of people might still dismiss values as just, common sense or maybe abstract ideals. You're suggesting they're almost like a blueprint for our identity. What's the biggest misunderstanding about how deeply they shape us beyond just making us feel good?
Well, I think the biggest misconception is underestimating their physiological impact. It's not just a feeling. When your actions genuinely align with your values, you don't just feel better psychologically. Your brain literally releases chemicals like dopamine and serotonin, feel-good chemicals. And this reinforces the behavior. It makes you feel more you, contributes to a sense of wholeness. It's not just philosophy, it's physiology driving well-being. This alignment, it forms your personal identity, shapes that authentic self, and gives you a really powerful sense of purpose. It influences everything. Your relationships, how you make decisions, personal growth, even your career path. And studies actually back this up. Understanding your values can help you identify and trim toxic relationships, ease symptoms of depression and anxiety, significantly improve your mental well-being overall, and make you far more passionate, more purposeful in your work. It's a real driver for holistic health.
Wow, okay. So if they're that powerful, how does this connect practically to living what we call a truly meaningful life?
It connects directly. Viktor Frankl famously said, "Life is never made unbearable by circumstances, but only by lack of meaning and purpose." Connecting with your values isn't just a nice idea, it's a potent psychological intervention. For instance, research shows it can literally reduce stress. There are studies showing lower cortisol responses, that's the stress hormone, in people who simply affirmed their core values before doing a stressful task.
Really? Just affirming them helps physiologically?
Yeah, it seems to tap into our inner resilience, provides a kind of stable anchor when the external world feels chaotic or demanding.
Okay, given how central values are, it sounds like it should be simple, just live authentically. But you mentioned misconceptions earlier. What are some of those common pitfalls we fall into when we try to be authentic?
Right. One really common pitfall, maybe amplified by some early self-help ideas, is that authenticity means acting the exact same way all the time, regardless of the situation. But the truth is, you can be authentic while still being, well, socially appropriate. Using a professional demeanor in a job interview and then being a more relaxed version of yourself at a party, that doesn't make you fake.
It's adapting your presentation, not your core.
Exactly. You're adapting your presentation, not changing your core self. Actually, think about the stress social media can cause sometimes. It kind of forces us to present this single, curated self to all these different parts of our lives, work colleagues, family, old friends.
Yeah, that can be exhausting.
It's a huge energy drain, precisely because it's often not truly authentic to the specific context,
Okay, that makes sense. What about the values themselves? Once we figure them out, are they just locked in for life, set in stone?
That brings us to misconception number 2. that your values have to stay the same forever. While some foundational values might stick with you, the reality is values can shift. They often do shift as life circumstances change. Think about it. Your college self's values might be quite different from your 40-year-old self's priorities, right? Especially after big life events.
Definitely. Having kids, changing careers.
Exactly. Authenticity isn't about rigidly sticking to old values. It's about aligning your current behavior with your current beliefs. I've heard so many stories, like there was a Reddit user who shared how their views on something really fundamental, like the death penalty, changed completely as they got new information and had different life experiences. The real value there wasn't the fixed belief itself, but maybe their openness to change and growth.
That's a great point. Okay, what about brutal honesty? Some people seem to think that's the pinnacle of authenticity, They're just being real. We've all met that person.
Oh, yes. Misconception number 3. Some people try to excuse, frankly, rude behavior by saying, hey, I'm just being honest. But there's a really crucial difference between being truthful and just being inconsiderate, being kind, being considerate. Even when you don't particularly like something or someone, that's a vital social skill. It doesn't make you two-faced.
It's about tact, maybe.
Tact, compassion. Showing compassion without judgment is actually key to being real in a healthy, functional way. It shows emotional maturity, an authentic understanding of how to engage respectfully.
Okay, this is really shifting my perspective on authenticity.
Yeah.
Which leads to the big question. If our understanding has these nuances, what truly makes a life meaningful according to the actual research? Not just our gut feelings, but what the studies show.
Yeah, this is where the research is really fascinating. Studies point to something they call the independent additive theory.
Independent additive, okay.
Right. It basically suggests that most people don't neatly fit into those traditional philosophical boxes. The idea that meaning is only subjective feelings or only objective impact. Instead, people seem to believe that both subjective factors, like how you feel, and objective factors, like what you actually do, independently and additively affect how meaningful a life is seen to be.
Okay, so break that down. Subjective factors first.
So on the subjective side, you've got things like fulfillment, positive feelings, engagement in life. For example, researchers found that even if an activity looks totally senseless from the outside, like someone dedicating their life to meticulously hand copying an entire dictionary.
Wow, okay. Or collecting rubber bands, like in the
Exactly. Or collecting rubber bands.
Yeah.
If that person finds deep, genuine fulfillment in it, other people still tend to attribute meaning to their life. And it's really noteworthy that feeling fulfilled and feeling life is meaningful were super highly correlated in these studies, almost synonymous.
Interesting. So subjective feeling is huge. What about the objective side then?
Right. Then you have the objective factors. The researchers identified 3 main ones: contribution, sensibility, and morality. Contribution is about making a valuable difference to the world. Think a philanthropist versus maybe someone whose life is dedicated solely to being a wine connoisseur. One is seen as contributing more.
Makes sense.
Sensibility is about whether the activities themselves seem sensible or valuable, like building a sturdy treehouse versus digging random holes looking for imaginary buried treasure.
Or correcting a dictionary versus just counting bricks.
Precisely. Studies showed sensibility does add to perceived meaningfulness, but fulfillment, that subjective part, still generally had a bigger impact than just sensibility alone.
Okay, contribution, sensibility.
Yeah.
And the third was morality.
Yes, and this is the kicker. Morality seemed to be the most powerful objective factor. Morally good activities, like the examples used, helping at-risk teens stay motivated, or working to reduce the cost of vital medicines, these were seen as highly meaningful, even if the person doing them said they weren't particularly fulfilled by it.
Even without the fulfillment.
Even without the fulfillment. And conversely, morally bad activities, the studies used examples like giving money to terrorist groups, encouraging teen drug use, harassing homeless people. These actions significantly reduced how meaningful a life was judged to be, even if the person doing them claimed they felt totally fulfilled.
Whoa.
Yeah. It vividly shows there's this strong, objective moral component baked into how people, collectively, assess a meaningful life.
That's a really powerful framework. But I'm playing devil's advocate here.
Yeah.
Could someone argue that even the morally good acts are still just driven by a subjective feeling, like the satisfaction of helping?
Yeah.
How does the research counter that?
That's a great and, yeah, challenging question. The research suggests it's not just subjective satisfaction driving the judgment. While sure, there's often fulfillment in doing good, the studies consistently show that participants independently weighed the objective moral nature of the action itself. They would judge a life spent helping others as meaningful, even if the person in the scenario claimed they weren't fulfilled.
And the reverse for immoral acts, even with claimed fulfillment.
Exactly. They judge a life engaged in objectively immoral acts as less meaningful, even with high claimed fulfillment. It's like you said, a dimmer switch, not just on-off based on feelings.
Yeah.
And this points to maybe two deeper reasons why this model works. First, meaningfulness seems tied to mattering. If something matters deeply to you, that's your subjective fulfillment, or if it matters to others through its subjective impact, it adds to meaning.
Okay, mattering. And the second?
The second is authenticity. When you feel fulfilled, it often signals you're living in line with your true self. And here's the fascinating part. People generally seem to assume our true selves are fundamentally good, morally speaking.
Huh. So good deeds seem authentic.
Right. So good deeds appear authentic and meaningful, while objectively evil deeds are often seen as somehow inauthentic, like going against that presumed good core self, even if the person doing them feels good about it.
Wow. Okay, this is genuinely fascinating stuff. We get what values are, why they matter, how they connect to meaning. But now, for you listening, how do you actually identify these powerful guides? It feels like something you should just know, but honestly, it's often not that obvious, is it?
No, it definitely isn't always obvious. It takes dedicated self-reflection. But there are some really practical ways to dig in. One powerful method is journaling. But not just listing what happened. Actively reflect on moments when you felt most fulfilled, most joyful, maybe most at ease or in flow. Ask yourself, what deep human need or aspiration was being met right then? Was it connection, contribution, creativity, freedom? Look for the patterns.
Like finding the common thread in those peak moments.
Exactly. The pattern often reveals your core values hiding in plain sight. Like that Reddit user you mentioned, who realized through this that being real, kind, and curious were central for them. Or others find clarity through things like prayer or meditation. It can be a spiritual journey for some too. You can also use specific self-reflection questions. Things like, what qualities do you most admire in other people? What about in yourself? What does that tell you?
What would you do if money and opinions didn't matter?
That's a classic. That's a great one. Or, when does time just seem to disappear for you? What were you doing? What life events stand out as most meaningful? Or even a fun one. Stranded on a desert island, what 3 things do you bring? Not just practical things, but what do they really tell you about what's important deep down?
Like bringing a photo album might point to valuing connection or family.
Precisely. It gets beneath the surface assumptions. Then there's a more structured approach, using a values inventory. You can find lists online with common values: adventure, altruism, authenticity, creativity, family, health, honesty, kindness, loyalty, wisdom, tons of them. You sort of tick off the ones that resonate, then maybe try to narrow it down, rank your top, say, 5 to 8 non-negotiables, your core values.
And you mentioned a go-to-war question. That sounds intense.
It is, but it can be revealing. Ask yourself, what principles or causes are so important to you that you would fiercely defend them? Like protecting children or standing against injustice or maybe safeguarding free speech can uncover some incredibly deep-seated values.
This definitely sounds like more than a one-time quiz. It's an ongoing process, right?
Yeah.
I know for me, revisiting values after a big career change felt like I needed a whole new compass reading.
Absolutely. That's a perfect way to put it. It is absolutely a process, not a destination. Your values can and likely will adapt and shift over time. Your priorities at 20 are probably different from 40, especially after, like you said, major life changes, kids, career shifts, maybe even surviving a pandemic changes things. So revisiting them regularly, maybe every few years or after big events, is crucial. It ensures your goals and actions reflect your current truth.
And prevents burnout or resentment.
Exactly. It helps prevent burnout, resentment, and stops you from being unknowingly controlled by old limiting beliefs that just don't fit anymore. It's a dynamic part of growth.
Okay, so we know what values are, why they matter, how they influence meaning, how to find them. Now, the really practical part, how do we consistently live by them? How do we make this a habit, not just an interesting idea we think about once in a while? This feels like where good intentions often stumble.
Yeah, that's definitely where the rubber meets the road. There's a great quote: purpose inspires, values guide, and habits define. The absolute key is daily reflection and recognizing that our energy for things like kindness, effectiveness, it really falters when we're depleted. So building habits that nurture us physically, mentally, spiritually is foundational. One excellent practical method is creating an ideal self list. Maybe jot down 6 to 10 actions your ideal self, the version of you aligned with your values, would say yes to doing daily.
Okay, like what kind of actions?
You can categorize them. Maybe health related, exercise, healthy meal, meditation, drinking water, simple stuff. Social related could be deliberately having fun, connecting with someone, or consciously being a blessing or serving others in some small way. And then value related actions tied directly to your core values. Maybe writing if creativity is key, practicing a new skill for growth, simplifying your space if order matters, or even practicing nadamas.
Anonymous, nothing more.
Yeah, nothing more. It's about avoiding adding unnecessary clutter, commitments, or emotional baggage. Mindful restraint, basically. Then you track these actions. Some people have bullet journals, others use a spreadsheet, whatever works. Just the act of tracking can bring focus, even creativity. And the most crucial step, nightly introspection. Each evening, without judgment, that's key. No beating yourself up, reflect on the day's actions.
What kind of questions do you ask?
Simple ones. Where was my value of, say, kindness present today? When did I feel far from my value of integrity? Then assess the impact. Are these practices actually boosting my energy? Do I feel I have more capacity to be kind to myself and others? If yes, great. Celebrate that. Keep going. If not, okay, what needs adjusting? It's very much like those ancient spiritual practices, like the examen, a daily review of conscience, or Yogananda's call for nightly introspection. It's rooted in deep wisdom.
All right, that daily check-in. So you mentioned habits take time, maybe that 66-day average people talk about now, not just 21 days. What's the biggest hurdle people face when trying to actually do this reflective habit daily? And what's one immediate piece of advice for overcoming that inertia?
I think the biggest hurdle, honestly, is perfectionism and trying to do way too much too soon. People get excited, they try to overhaul their entire life overnight, they miss one day of journaling or meditating, and then they feel like a total failure and just abandon the whole thing. Sound familiar?
Yeah, definitely.
So my immediate advice is always start incredibly small and prioritize consistency over intensity. Habits take time. That 66 days is just an average. It varies. The key is the consistent, non-judgmental reflection. That's what strengthens the neural pathways, making the behaviors more automatic over time. So pick just 1 or 2 key value-aligned activities to focus on first. Trying to do everything at once is a recipe for overwhelm.
Like giving seasons to your life, focusing on one value for a while.
Exactly. You can absolutely give seasons to your life. Focus intensely on cultivating habits around one core value, maybe for 90 days, maybe even a year, before shifting focus. It prevents burnout and allows for really deep, sustainable change.
Okay, so let's bring this all together for you, our listener. We've covered a lot. What values are, why they're so important, how they shape a meaningful life according to research, how you can start identifying yours, and now, critically, how to make living by them a daily, sustainable habit, ultimately reflecting on your values. It isn't just some philosophical navel-gazing. It's a practical, daily practice that unlocks a life that feels more authentic, more aligned, and deeply meaningful. It really does boost your confidence, gives you a clearer vision for your goals, helps manage stress by keeping focus on what truly matters, guides your decisions with integrity, fuels resilience when things get tough, and genuinely increases your overall life satisfaction.
And maybe a final thought. If meaningfulness, like that research suggests, really boils down to mattering and authenticity, then the deliberate act of clarifying what truly matters to you and then showing up authentically in line with that day after day through the simple, consistent habit of reflection that isn't just a path to a better life. It might just be the very essence of what makes a life profoundly lived.
We really hope this deep dive encourages you to carve out even just a few minutes for that reflection. What values might you choose to explore today? We'll be back soon with another deep dive into your most pressing questions.